Your car is probably not going to see 200,000 miles without a major, wallet-draining rebuild. And it is not because the manufacturer built a terrible engine or because cars lack the capacity they used to have. It is happening because of the tiny, seemingly harmless things you are doing right now behind the steering wheel. Every single time you fire up the engine, shift a gear, or tap the brakes, you might be unknowingly stealing thousands of miles from your vehicle's lifespan. An engine hitting the 250,000-mile mark is not some lucky accident. It is a triumph of engineering combined with meticulous mechanical sympathy. Yet, even the most bulletproof power plants fall victim to the silent killers of bad daily habits. We are going to break down the critical user errors that you probably consider just part of your normal driving routine, starting with the absolute worst offender. Think about those cold mornings. You start the car, throw it immediately into drive, and hit the gas. Doing this causes severe, irreversible damage. Why? Because the lifeblood of your engine, the oil, needs time to circulate. When the ambient temperature drops, motor oil thickens up and sits heavy in the oil pan. It cannot instantly reach the vital components in the upper cylinder head. Revving the engine before full lubrication occurs pushes friction to catastrophic levels, resulting in actual metal-on-metal contact. Engineering data shows that nearly 90% of engine wear happens precisely during this initial cold start period. What you actually need to do is start the engine and let it idle for about 30 to 60 seconds. That is it. Give the oil pump a chance to do its job and push that fluid where it needs to go. And speaking of cold engines, pushing high RPMs before the engine is fully warmed up is the fastest shortcut to the scrapyard. Driving aggressively with a cold engine means the oil temperature has not reached its ideal operating window, meaning it cannot provide a full protective film over moving parts. Inside the block, the pistons expand unevenly within the cylinder walls due to the rapid, unbalanced heat. If you have a turbocharged vehicle, the inside of that turbo is practically getting smeared with sludge instead of smooth lubrication. Keep your tachometer well under 3,000 revolutions per minute until both your coolant and oil temperature gauges reach their optimal midpoint. Do not let impatience destroy your internals. Let us talk about the transmission and the brakes. Specifically, the terrible habit of resting your foot constantly on the brake pedal. Whether you are lightly dragging the brakes in traffic or riding them all the way down a steep hill, you are engaging in one of the most destructive driving habits possible. This constant friction causes the brake pads to overheat and glaze over, meaning they completely lose their ability to grip. The extreme heat warps your brake rotors, causing that awful steering wheel shake every time you try to slow down. But it gets worse. Your automatic transmission senses the constant braking and assumes you are trying to execute a continuous deceleration, so it continuously downshifts, throwing massive unnecessary stress on the drivetrain components. If you are driving something heavy, like a Ford F-150 loaded with gear, riding the brakes downhill is a guaranteed way to boil your brake fluid. Instead, learn to use engine braking when appropriate, and take your left foot completely off the pedal area. Then there is the issue of ignoring your vehicle's actual weight limits. The payload and towing capacities listed in your door jamb are not just random suggestions. They represent the absolute physical limits of the vehicle's engineering. Every time you overload your car, you subject the suspension, the brakes, and especially the transmission to incredible stress. Pushing past factory specifications causes micro cracks to form in the shock strut towers, and your coil springs lose their elasticity, dropping the chassis dangerously close to the pavement. Hitting a pothole in this state means catastrophic damage to the undercarriage. The transmission has to generate significantly more torque to move that massive weight, causing the transmission fluid to heat up rapidly to its boiling point, which destroys the delicate gear sets inside. You might think you are just hauling a heavy load for one afternoon, but you are effectively grinding away mechanical parts worth $310 with every mile you drive. Another massive mistake is ignoring OBD2 error codes and the check engine light. I see this all the time. People put a piece of black tape over the dashboard light and pretend everything is fine. When your car throws a code, it is practically screaming for help. For example, if you are driving a Passat B-Series and ignoring a lean or rich condition code, you are not just burning a little extra gas. You are sending unburnt fuel straight into the exhaust system, which will literally melt the internals of your catalytic converter. A cheap oxygen sensor replacement suddenly turns into a massive exhaust repair bill. You need to pull those codes immediately, understand what the computer is telling you, and fix the root cause before a minor sensor failure causes a catastrophic chain reaction in the combustion cycle. This ties perfectly into neglecting complex timing systems. Modern engines are incredibly dependent on precise oil pressure for variable valve timing. Take the BMW E46 or E90 chassis, for instance. These cars use the Vanos system to adjust engine timing on the fly to maximize power and efficiency. When you skip oil changes or use the wrong viscosity, the tiny oil passages in the Vanos solenoids get clogged with microscopic carbon and sludge. The system starves for oil. The timing chain guides start to slap and break apart, and eventually, the timing jumps. When pistons meet valves, your engine is instantly converted into a very expensive paperweight. You cannot treat a highly engineered mechanical system like an old farm tractor. That brings us directly to the oil itself. If you think all motor oils are the exact same, you need to change your mindset right now. Running the wrong viscosity or specification completely ruins the lubrication cycle, especially in modern high-compression or turbocharged engines. A brand new turbo engine might specifically require 0-weight 20 oil to squeeze through impossibly tight clearances, while a modern diesel absolutely needs low SAPS oil to prevent the diesel particulate filter from clogging up and failing. Do not just blindly grab whatever is on sale at the local auto parts store. You must match the exact technical specification code required by your vehicle's manufacturer. And it is not just engine oil you are neglecting. Failing to change the transmission fluid, brake fluid, and power steering fluid is a silent killer. Fluids in your car do not just lubricate. They regulate extreme temperatures and condition the rubber seals. Postponing the replacement of these hydraulic fluids leads to internal corrosion and total system failure. Transmission fluid generally needs changing every 60,000 miles, and brake fluid absorbs moisture from the air, meaning it must be flushed every 2 years regardless of mileage. Do not wait for the fluid to look like black tar. By the time it looks that bad, the internal damage to the valve bodies and brake calipers is already done. Your tires are another area of severe neglect. They are the only contact point between your multi-ton vehicle and the road, and that actual contact patch is barely the size of your palm. Running improper tire pressure does not just hurt your fuel economy. Being even a few psi under the ideal mark causes the sidewalls to overheat and breaks down the internal structure of the tire. It destroys the tire's ability to absorb road shock, transferring every single bump directly into your shock absorbers, wheel bearings, and control arms. Cruising around on poorly maintained tires practically guarantees your suspension will need an overhaul years ahead of schedule. Furthermore, failing to rotate your tires leads to uneven wear patterns. Combine that with a bad alignment, and you are putting immense strain on your steering rack and tie rods. We also need to talk about the regular maintenance schedule. The owner's manual sitting in your glove box is not a collection of polite suggestions. It is a survival guide for your vehicle. Skipping or delaying your scheduled maintenance turns minor, inexpensive wear items into catastrophic chain reaction failures. Let us say you decide to ignore your spark plugs because the car still seems to run okay. Those worn-out spark plugs eventually lead to minor engine misfires. Misfires send unburned fuel into the exhaust, which then superheats and literally melts the precious metals inside your catalytic converter. A routine plug swap just morphed into a massive exhaust system repair. Do not listen to the corner mechanic who tells you certain preventative maintenance is overkill. Stick religiously to the manufacturer's intervals and keep every single service receipt. Not only does this prevent major breakdowns, but having a thick folder of maintenance records drastically increases the resale value of the car. We must also listen to the noises our cars make. That new ticking, squeaking, or clunking sound is an early warning system. When you turn the steering wheel all the way and hear a sharp clicking noise, that is a failing CV joint, begging for mercy. A high-pitched squeal when you touch the brake pedal is the wear indicator telling you the brake pads are entirely gone. Turning up the radio volume does not fix the broken part. I remember hearing a subtle rear-end clunk on an old E30, and ignoring it would have meant the differential ripping itself right off its mounts. Use your ears. Catch the problems while they are small and cheap to fix. Finally, one of the most surprising ways to ruin your car is by simply letting it sit. Modern cars absolutely hate being parked for weeks on end. When a car just sits in a driveway, the fluids separate and leave sludge deposits. The fuel turns stale and loses its combustibility. The battery undergoes sulfation and completely dies. The tires develop flat spots from carrying the static weight of the vehicle in one position. If you know your car is going to sit for more than a couple of weeks, you need to inflate the tires to a slightly higher pressure, hook up a battery tender, and ideally, take it for a 20-minute drive once a week to get all the fluids up to their proper operating temperatures. Reaching that massive mileage milestone with an engine that runs like a Swiss watch is entirely possible. It just requires dropping these bad habits, paying attention to the mechanics, and treating the engineering with respect. Catch these mistakes now, and your car will reward you with years of reliable service.